Okay. I'm going to give myself a second, and
Right.
I'll start again. So I'll edit this shit out.
Another 2 seconds, 10 seconds.
10 seconds. Hold on. Give me till 20 seconds. I'll kick it off at that point. Okay. Welcome to a new show. Me and my buddy Len, we've known each other for fucking decades, decided to put together, and it's called the GenX Guys. And I think GenX itself should pretty much explain what age range we fall into.
Or the gray does it as well, both of us.
That is true. For those who are listening on podcasts, we both have beards. You can see the age in that, but we also have video. And so that's something we're going to be doing, is putting our video channel along with the podcast on a weekly basis. Yep.
Yeah,
and then go ahead, Len. Introduce yourself to the crowd.
Like I said, as JD said, my name's Len. We've known each other since, 4th grade? And now we're 51. Somebody's about to turn 52 in another 2 months or so. So JD is the older one out of us by 6 whole months.
All right, dude. You don't have to keep pointing that out. Jesus. It's not that different.
Yes, it is. It's still really relevant.
6 months. It's just 6 months.
Even at 50, it's still relevant.
Okay. At this point in our lives, over 50 years now.
It doesn't matter.
Got it. Okay.
Hey, your wife still says that, she's the youngest one out of us, and she's 11 months younger than you. So
that is true.
It is true.
That is true.
We've known each other. We went to elementary school together. We went to a different high school our freshman year, but then first day back of the sophomore year of high school, we saw each other in the office, and unfortunately for one of us, we've been friends ever since, or best friends ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys can figure out who you think the unfortunate soul is, but
yeah, I think people will be able to figure that out after a while.
We'll just leave that as it is. Yeah. What we'll do here on the show is, like, on a weekly basis, from a Gen X point of view, we'll give, whether it's just sports take, and you'll have us most likely bleed into, oh, this is what happened in the past. It's kind of funny because I know a lot of people will say that when I was young, oh, this is how we did in the past. So we find it humorous that we're kind of doing a podcast on that as well.
Yeah.
We think it'll bring some fun, exciting topics for everyone, and really help people enjoy it and just listen, and make sure you save and save the show, and make sure to follow us every week when we come out. But yeah, this week just wanted to do our intro, right? New show, and chat it up, and just get people to know us, and kind of go from there. So let's talk about let's focus this week, for this week's show. We'll focus more on sports. That's something you and I have generally followed our whole life in a passionate way.
Sometimes too passionate, but yeah. Breaking things at other people's houses. That's me. Yeah.
That is true. You did. Oh, have a guest walk by. Yeah. And
he's our featured guest for this week.
Yeah. Our featured guest just walked by. And it's always good with video. You get background shots.
Right. Especially because we're not like in some professional studio or whatever. Yeah.
It's literally at home.
Yep.
So, but yeah, for sports, the next week so just so people know, we're recording this on a Saturday. And NBA season will start next week.
Yeah.
Which is exciting for a lot of people. For me, as being a lifetime Laker fan, it's always fun. Len, what are your teams again, or who's your team?
Wait. Let's also say, where were you born? Just curious.
I don't think that's relevant to the conversation.
It's really relevant, and always has been. By the way, he was born in San Francisco, and somehow he is an LA fan. No. I know the background, but if you want to tell everybody what your background is, why you like the Lakers, go ahead.
Well, yeah. Well, of course, it's pretty obvious, I think. But when I played basketball as a kid, I enjoyed watching.
How was it obvious? What's so obvious about it?
Okay.
What?
I'm just saying, it's obvious when I tell a story.
Okay,
it makes sense. It makes sense. It'll be obvious then. No one would have any clue heading into this. But I was
you're sitting down. It also helps. By the way, he's 6'4". Or I think you say now it's 6'3.5" because you're shrinking.
Yeah, I'm shrinking. Yeah. Once you hit 50, you start to lose a little bit.
That's true.
But no, I'm a Laker fan. Have been my whole life. I was a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar diehard fan. When I started really seeing basketball and wanting to play it, He was a mainstay in basketball. I loved watching him. He was with the Lakers, was huge. And so that developed my relationship with the Lakers. Then Magic got picked up and drafted out of Michigan State. I became a big fan of his. What's that? What's that?
Something in my throat. Sorry. Go ahead.
Got it. So I became a big fan of the Lakers, and I have been ever since. And just so happens, they're one of the best dynasties and organizations ever in the history of basketball.
Just randomly.
You're actually the greatest organization in the history of basketball.
Yeah.
So what's your team, Len? Like, I'm glad you jumped on mine, but let's talk about your sadness story.
I have a real connection. So I was born in Cleveland, Ohio.
When did you move again? When did you move?
When I was 3. But
So how many people remember anything when they were 3 or younger? Nobody.
I don't remember anything from 3 months
Blind allegiance. Continue. Sorry.
Blind allegiance. You're right, because I have a connection with it. I'm from Cleveland. My brother also follows sports, so it was just one of the connections I still have with Cleveland. So I actually have a real connection, not some.
I have a connection. I visited LA. I probably visited LA as much as you lived in Cleveland.
No.
Yeah.
You visited LA for 3 total years.
Probably. My whole life.
In Cleveland when I was younger. Anyway, yeah, so I am a Cavs fan.
Yeah, let's talk about your football teams too. Real quick, let's just throw football in there, just so people know too.
Okay, and this will be fun because I am also a Browns fan, unfortunately.
Which version of the Browns are we talking about here?
The real version, the one that the
Baltimore
acknowledges. No, the one that NFL
doesn't know what they're talking about.
Got it. I forgot you are more authority on the NFL than the NFL is. You're right. So yeah, if you go back to the history books, it doesn't have a 3-year gap or anything like that, but that's fine. No. You know more, right?
I do. Anyway, continue on. Continue with your story. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt and send you off.
The 49ers are my 1B team. So I did grow up more with the 49ers. So to be honest, growing up as a Gen Xer in the 80s and even into the 90s, being in California, I rarely got to see a Browns game. So I did follow them. Of course, like when they were on TV or playoff time, when they actually used to go in the playoffs, during the 80s. That's when I used to actually be able to watch them. But so I will say in my life, I have seen way more 49er games. But ever since Sunday Ticket came out back in, what was it, 2000 or so? Or I think probably out before that. But I've been getting Sunday Ticket and now on YouTube ever since then to be able to watch them. So every Sunday we watch. The nice thing is that usually the Browns are, because we're West Coast, so Browns are the 10 a.m. game, and then I can watch 49ers at 1. Usually. That's
right.
Pretty normal.
Yep. Nice. Very cool.
So who are your football teams?
Well, hold on. Before we jump into my teams. No. I have a question for you before we jump into my teams, because you're just going to go crazy. Obviously, to your point, the Niners, you've seen a lot more in your life. You've actually been with them a lot more in the sense of whether attending games. So I'm curious, how are they your 1B team when they're the only team that's gotten you 5 titles that you've seen in your life for football?
You're right, because that's what really makes you a fan of a team, is that they're winning and doing well. I forgot. Yeah. Now, why don't you also explain outside of San Francisco?
Hold on. You didn't even let me say who my teams.
Your teams that you have. Who are they again? So who's your football teams? I like how you.
As Len said, I was born in San Francisco, so I have been and always will be a San Francisco Niner fan since the beginning.
Okay, and who else?
And then, interestingly enough, it's a funny story. It's not really fun. Maybe it's a funny story. Who knows? I also like the hated rivals, the Dallas Cowboys. Now,
let's explain that, because
Yeah. Let me. I'll get to it.
You've been to Dallas as often as you've been to LA, right?
Not quite. Not at all. In all fairness, I've been to Dallas one time with you when we went there for a week, and that was it for work at the time. For Sony PlayStation, for that matter.
Yeah. By the way, one background thing for us: we worked at the same company 3 times.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, 3 times. Well, 3. So corporate businesses. Yeah. Corporate style. Yeah. We worked plenty of times when we were younger too, and other places were at the mall and stuff like that. So,
did you ever work at Bill? Sorry, I'm just totally excited.
We did. I did with you, dude.
We worked at the same time. I couldn't remember if we worked at the same time.
No, you came after me.
I did come after you. Yeah. We both kind of quit after like 2 weeks.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He was a horrible owner who would never put you on the clock, but wants you to stay for hours in case he needed you.
Yeah. I remember I quit after I realized that my paycheck purely went towards food.
Yeah. For those who don't know what Farrell's is, I mean, you can look it up. But Farrell's is an ice cream parlor restaurant, and back in the definitely 70s and 80s, and it lasted till late 90s.
Yeah.
I think maybe early 2000, at least in the
It did
Bay
because we
Area.
went there for my middle son's birthday.
Yeah.
And he was born in 2000.
So it's a fantastic place. Early on, the big ice cream bar that they would have these giant ice cream desserts and whatnot that you could get. That was like a big, and I'm sure other places have similar today in other locations, but it was a lot of fun. They also, every time someone's birthday would go on, they'd play a siren, boom, bam, the drum.
What was
ring the
Ziggy
drum.
Piggy? What was that from?
Oh, Ziggy Piggy is from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
That's what. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they call Napoleon, is Ziggy Piggy, because he ate it all.
Thank you.
But yeah, the Farrell's was a great place to go to. It was a lot of fun. Eventually, over time, when you get older, it's not as cool. But it was kids. It's a fun time.
Right.
They had a little arcade. Yeah, they had a little arcade that you could play at. But to the cowboy point,
we'd be there for like 6 hours. Like be there for 6 hours, but he would only have us clock in when he actually needed us.
Right.
Only when there's a big rush.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. Yeah.
Totally illegal, but we had no idea back then.
No. We just were happy to have a job-ish, but not get paid.
But then, like I said, you'd have lunch there, and it was like a 10% discount on it. But you'd eat there, and you realize that that $5-6 burger that you had was pretty much half your pay.
Yes, but the real benefit, at least from my perspective at the time, was the arcade. Not the ice cream. I didn't actually eat much of the ice cream there, but the arcade itself, because we were able to trip it till we could play for free the whole time, and so we would just spend the whole time in the arcade.
Now we can do this sidetracked, and we'll come back to that because, like, video games is something that JD and I have played since, Atari 2600.
Well, yeah.
I don't. I mean, we'll go over that. But that's a whole nother conversation. So we can have a conversation about arcade, home systems, PC. Those are totally
the evolution of gaming itself, right? From what we've seen. Yeah, there's a lot. So we can go on a lot, but let's try and get back on topic. Let's get back on topic here. Our topic was, again, sports. And
the Dallas Cowboys. Let's go back to that one.
Yeah. So the Dallas Cowboys. So interestingly enough, back in the late 70s, my cousin, who's a diehard Cowboy fan and only a Cowboy fan, when I'd go to his house in the summer or, during, I don't know, birthdays or whatever, during the fall, during football season, he'd have me watch the games with him. And at the time, the thing the Cowboys did under Tom Landry, which I always found cool and kind of got me so fascinated by the team, not only that the colors are awesome, they just seem to mix well. But the offensive line would, every time as they go get set, would then pop up and reset again. It was like their traditional move every time when they'd get set. So it got me really interested. I started to follow the Cowboys and liked watching Roger Staubach and those guys.
Why is it that my brother can have me like a team, or can't have me like a team from the city that I was born in, but your cousin can make you help you like a team that neither one of you have any actual connection to?
Fair question.
I'm just curious what the difference is between those.
Yeah, that's a fair question. Because I like my cousin, you don't like your brother.
Shit, that's a good point.
Yeah, so
I love my brother, but
stop it.
I do love him.
I know you love him. He just drives you crazy. As some siblings could, specifically your brother. So, but anyway, so it's a fair point. Hey, it's a fair point. You're not wrong.
I like how you said specifically my brother.
Yeah, your oldest brother only.
Yeah.
We will not name names, but
my oldest brother is 8 years older, but we won't say his name.
No, we won't say his name. He knows who he is. And if he listens to the show, we're just having fun.
We don't need that one viewer.
That one viewer or listener. So again, that was my allegiance to the Cowboys. And so needless to say, it's been a tough road in the sense that when the Cowboys and Niners face each other, I will always pick the Niners.
I know.
I've never doubted that. But I will say there was one point that I did want the Cowboys to beat the Niners. And that was because my pure emotional dedication to Joe Montana. And the first NFC title game the Niners and Cowboys faced 3 years in a row.
I remember that.
Steve Young was in. Montana was available. They went with Steve Young. They lost a game that they should have won.
Should have won.
If Montana was in. and they didn't. And they blew a chance to go to a Super Bowl and win another one because they didn't want to change it up. And eventually Montana got traded to Kansas City.
I
But
think they didn't want to hurt him, or they didn't want to hurt him so they can trade him. Personally,
maybe. I also think it's an emotional thing. They'd already made the move for themselves. And so fundamentally, they just didn't feel like they should go back, even though he was the greatest quarterback in the Niner organization ever. Which we could spend another show talking about what determines who's the greatest, because there's so many shows you hear out there where people always talk about who the greatest is. And honestly, I have a different opinion on that. But anyway, so we kind of threw that out. You know, since we're talking sports real quick, baseball teams, I like the San Francisco Giants and the New York Yankees.
So wait. Just to clarify, somebody saying about, let's see, Lakers.
First off, again, San Francisco Giants are my one. I don't have a 1A, 1B crap like you did. 1 is the San Francisco Giants. 2 is the Yankees.
Fair enough.
All right, so go on. You're trying to make some comment.
No. The comment is let's see. Outside of the teams that are from where you're from, which is either your allegiance to a team is usually because of, or a majority of people, their allegiance is they're from your area, right? Or a family connection. Like my sons, I unfortunately made them Browns fans.
Or there's a third option.
Basically, I look at making my kids Browns fans for the most part, child abuse.
It is. Totally agree. Yeah.
And that's it.
So unlike where he stopped there, the third option is you could find a player that you really like a lot. And that's happening today, actually. A lot of teams, fans are now based on players than they are just teams. Oh, yeah. But for me, it was more about there were players on the Yankees that I enjoyed. Like I mentioned with Kareem. Kareem fit for me. Kareem fit for me. At the time, I wasn't going to like the Warriors. Freaking Warriors. Let it go.
At the time that you did that, who had the most championships in the 3 major leagues? Just curious. When you did that in 1980, 1982, who had the most? Actually, yeah, who had the most championships?
In
sure the Yankees did. In their given sport, I'm pretty sure the Yankees did. Lakers did at that time.
No, they did not. No, they did not.
It was the Celtics.
Yeah, pull it together. If you're gonna try and bash me for saying I'm just a front runner.
What about the Cowboys?
Cowboys only had 2 titles. Cowboys only had 2 titles at the time.
2 out of 3. And how many? And who had the second most titles in the NBA?
Yeah, it's the Lakers. But those were the only 2 teams that really mattered in the NBA as it was. That was also the only 2 teams they really tried to promote. Hell, even today, they would love a Lakers-Celtics final right now. Yeah. So that hasn't changed. Anyway, so Yankees. So there we go.
Well, okay, but today, I think, again, going to the GenX thing, though, today's a different story because Staubach, all these players, like Montana leaving the 49ers was a huge deal back then. Not just because of that, but you didn't see players leave until they were washed up. And Montana wasn't washed up at that time. I understood Young was younger, and we can go into that at a later time, but you didn't see players leave, especially franchise players leave teams that much, especially when they were close to their prime. Like the whole thing, like with Deion Sanders, when he did that, that was the beginning of free agency, players moving around at their prime. Right. That was actually that window where you had that free agency, but you didn't really have a salary cap.
Yeah, well, there was definitely no salary cap at the time.
Yeah.
And so Niners could afford to bring in every player that they wanted to. And that was fantastic. And now they always talk about, well, with the cap, they never would have been able to do it. I disagree. I think they would have found a way. You can always find a way. Right. It's just a matter of how hard you want to look. Like, look at the Warriors. 100 million luxury tax like a couple years ago or something like that to maintain their core and then add some players in.
Yeah.
And the benefit is, they're willing to pay for it. But the benefit is they're also getting brand recognition globally. I mean, Steph Curry obviously is a global face. But think about, and it's funny, if anybody watches games today, you'll see certain teams' fan base really travels well. Or you see they have a huge following in different cities. Warriors right now, because of their history and Steph Curry and just the 4 titles they won, have that sort of following. The Lakers always have that following because it's just the Lakers. It's not true for the Celtics, though. Celtics stay within Boston. You do not see a mass following of Celtic fans existing outside of Boston that would go to like a Laker game per se.
I'll give you that.
And then for football, the Niners, it's funny, almost every game the Niners play seems like a home game. Even in Cleveland, it was and I was shocked by this. There were a lot of Niner fans who took up a lot of space in the Cleveland Browns stadium.
Yeah.
For a team that has a diehard fan base, they basically gave up a lot of those tickets for money, which makes sense. Why not, if you can? But
I think there's an assumption though that the 49ers are going to destroy the Browns, especially since we had an XFL player as our quarterback that week.
Yeah, there were a lot of things that went wrong with that game from a Niner perspective, which for you it's a win-win, right? Like I always laugh, like when the Niners and Cowboys play, it's theoretically a win-win.
Usually, look, I'm sorry, and I'm one of those guys who seriously, I don't care if a player gets injured on the other team. I really don't. As long as it's not a permanent thing. If they get hurt for a game or two, and it's not like career threatening or out for the season, I'm sorry, I don't care. Maybe I'm just bitter as hell because I'm a Browns fan, because it always happens to us. Like you saw the injury to Nick Chubb, but yeah, it was. I did not like seeing CMC get hurt or Debo going out so early, especially. Yeah. What I didn't like about the CMC injury was I didn't think he should have went back in.
Yeah, but Christian McCaffrey is one of those players who wants to play and will go back, and it doesn't want to let injuries railroad him. I mean, he's had a history of injuries playing for Carolina, so for him, I understand why he came in, and but he realized after that okay, yeah, I don't think I can push through this, and he stayed out the rest of the game. I
looked at it this way: at that time the 49ers were 5-0. Losing that game. I mean, yeah, I'm not even saying it from a Browns bias. Losing that game in the big scheme of things is not a big deal compared to losing him for an extended period of time. Taking him out as a precaution, I thought was the right thing to do.
Yeah,
obviously he goes out. He goes in for one play, comes back in, and then he comes back out again. You can see he was grimacing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So that was my point, right? Like fan bases that follow teams, and some just gravitate further than have the following. So that was like back to the Warriors when we were talking about salary caps and things along those lines. The fact is that the value you get even when you overspend, whether it's cap or whatnot, to make yourself competitive is the hopeful recognition and growth that you'll get out there within the market, within the other cities and so forth. And that's why the NFL's been pushing so hard to go to Europe. They have 3 games in London. They have one coming up in Germany. So they're putting a lot of effort into international play. So we'll see how that goes. But I mean, that's an interesting concept.
What do you think about that though? I mean, because I almost look at it like them forcing Thursday night football on. I mean, I think if they did the schedule better, where like a team can only do Thursday night after a bye week, because when you hear players talk about playing a game on Thursday after playing one on Sunday, they all talk about how their bodies aren't still 100% ready after the previous game. And then when you look at the travel, like, should West Coast teams travel to Europe? Right? Because I mean, you're adding on 5 hours to travel and what it does to their bodies, or like, should they only do it like after a bye or before a bye or something like that, where you get a little bit, because I mean, unlike other sports, I mean, everybody always says with the NFL that how long it takes them to recover from a game. Like, like the next day, it's like they were in a car accident.
Right.
So
yeah, I don't think it's worse as you get older too. I know that. I play soccer on Fridays sometimes when work, permits and I can get away for an hour for lunch. Yeah. And when it does happen the next day, I'm like, I'm hurt. And so, yeah, to your point, but I agree. And so far, I don't think any West Coast teams have traveled to London. So they are trying to keep it, but eventually that could change. And you're right. Thursday football is just a money grab. There's no reason for it. From a Sunday to Thursday is a joke. And
again, if they set it up differently, then I can back it. But I don't. I mean, player safety, they always talk about it, but that clearly is a money grab, not about player safety. I think it's
player safety only matters to a certain point.
It does.
Yeah. As long as it doesn't impact their money. Yeah. That's all I care. It's just like grass fields. The NFLPA is pushing hard to make sure every stadium has a grass field, because too many times artificial turf can cause more injuries. Now, I haven't looked at the stats recently to see in general where do most injuries happen? Do they happen more on turf? Like, is it 50-50? Is it like 70-30? Because if there's data that shows that, and we'll have to check for that. I'll have to get my crack crew of myself to look into that at some point.
Crack crew of us.
Yeah, crack crew of two. But yeah, we'll need to. But the point is like if that shows that that's the case, and there've been a lot of injuries like ACLs and whatnot, MCLs and so forth that can be impacted by that, then they should do it. But the NFL won't do it because it costs them for the stadiums that don't have grass indoor. Although the Raiders Stadium in Las Vegas,
Arizona, and they both do that, don't they? Where they put the field out.
Yeah, they pull it out and put it back in, so it can be done. It's just some of the older dome stadiums like Superdome. I don't know how they would support that.
I mean, it's the big issue is light, and I'm not saying that if you think about it, we have greenhouses. If they're just worried about light, they could just have a portable system. I would think.
It's true.
I mean, I don't want to oversimplify it. I mean, neither one of us are, horticulturalists or whatever. But if they can people can grow pot in a basement easily. Just with shit that they got from Home Depot. Yep. I think that the NFL with their resources can do the same thing.
Yep. Yeah. Agreed.
Again, you're right. It's an added expense.
Yeah. It's just a cost, but they get billions of dollars from networks. They can cover the $1 million or so for like $8 million for 8 weeks, basically, to keep the grass alive. So,
well, think about it. You play at minimum, not counting playoffs, right? 8 to 9 games a year on that with your team. Well, what happens if Aaron Rodgers hurt himself because you had that? How much did you just risk in revenue? Because if he's out, like, look, Browns fans are diehard. I mean, we are. What we did, like, especially the ones in Cleveland back in 96, finding the NFL to make sure that we maintained history and colors. Shut up, and got the expansion. Just shut up.
Wait. What did you say? You got an expansion team. So it's not the original Browns. That goes back to my point. It's not the original Browns. It's an expansion team. Dude, it doesn't matter. It's an expansion team. Your real team is in Baltimore where they won 2 Super Bowls under your former owner, Art Modell. Anyway, moving on.
The thing is, even regardless of how much the fan base is, the honest truth is we do get tired of losing. It's the only other teams that can really there aren't that many fan bases that can only talk like the Lions fans, like they're the NFC version of the Browns, or we're the AFC version of the Lions. But there is a point where it becomes what's that, like fatigue, where I think a lot of people don't want to go to. Look, I went to the 49er game when the 49ers destroyed the Browns in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
That was just a horrible experience. And like, think about if you were a season ticket fan holder and you just know that's going to happen. And it doesn't happen once in a while. It happens week in and week out. At least at home, I could look. My wife loves sometimes watching me when the Browns play because I end up doing a lot of housework. I get nervous energy and I just want to do something. But sitting in a stadium when that's happening, it sucks. And so I think there's a lot of that fatigue that happens with some of those. So having like a good player like, the Jets season go down because of Aaron Rodgers, or, the possibility of them, they were Super Bowl, in the Super Bowl discussion, but all of a sudden he goes down. And now, how much money have they lost because of his injury, with just everything. Yeah. So you do risk a lot by not having that for your own team. And they're on that every week or almost every week, half the season.
Right. No, I agree. And I know we kind of, and you'll find this with old people like ourselves at this point, we go on tangents that kind of escape from what the original question was, which was the NBA. We somehow dovetailed into the NFL. So,
very true.
Yeah. But
I mean, I can even say like with Cavaliers, right? It's like, they did.
We got a title there. That was good. You got a title.
Yeah. But the thing is, we did travel well for a while, but as soon as that, LeBron left.
Well, yeah, you lose a main. You lose a name like that. Yeah. That never works well. But speaking of basketball, because we'll come back to it, just, next week starts the season. The season starts on Tuesday night, I believe it is. I can't remember the matchups just off the top of my head.
Yeah, we had to be prepared.
Yeah, a little bit more. But the point is, the basketball season's coming up, and I just watched last night. You had the Warriors against the Spurs in a funny game where Steph Curry does the jump ball against the rookie from France, Wembayama.
Who's a foot
So
taller.
7'4" guy against a 6'2" guy because Curry's only 6'2", 6'3",
6'3".
I think it is. I think he's 6'3". But either way, so a foot taller to your point.
Half an inch, just like you.
And I found it humorous because if you watch the clip, and you can go on ESPN or others, and they'll show it. But I find it humorous because as he's lining up, he's like getting really jumping. Steph's like really putting into it. Like he knows he's not going to win it, but he really wants to show that he's going to really jump. And right behind him, you can see Andrew Wiggins just kind of smirking, knowing full well he's not going to win. It's just laughing because they're doing this. I mean, it's a preseason game, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. But yeah, the season starting this week. My opinion of like who are the best teams that right off the top of my head that I think from the Western Conference. I mean, obviously Denver because of the champions. Yeah. I'll put them up at the top. Yeah. I'd say the next 2 to 3, and I'm not going to go top 8 or anything. Just my personal 4 would be Denver. It's going to be the Warriors. I think the Warriors are going to do better than people expect with Chris Paul, which is shocking because I've been watching them and I think they're doing a little bit better on that. I also think that you're going to see the Lakers compete as long as LeBron and AD stay healthy. If they stay healthy, then they're definitely one of those top teams. And then Phoenix. You can't miss because I am curious to see how this team's going to do. They did solve a bit for their bench. Yeah. Because that was their weakness last year. And and they traded for Bradley Beal, which was nice. And then for the Eastern Conference, I mean, my top 4 are, of course, going to be the Celtics, which I always hate to say, but it's the Celtics anyway.
It's what it is.
It is what it is. Celtics, obviously Milwaukee is the top because of the fact that I had Dame Lillard in there.
Yeah.
Giannis. Yeah. So Giannis. Yeah, Giannis and Lillard, but we'll have to see how that pans out over time. Because Giannis tends to get hurt a little bit, not for a full season like an AD, but
he gets that nag.
Yeah, he gets. I mean, he's an aggressive guy. He goes hard, so he's going to get some bumps and bruises along the way. But he'll always get out there and play. Yeah. And same with Lillard, it's the same way. So it should be interesting there. And then the last 2, I mean, does it really matter? I guess it's kind of a toss-up. You can throw Philly in there just because Philly's name gets thrown out there. I mean, Cleveland actually doesn't have a bad team. I just don't know if they're top 4. And
it's really just Donovan Mitchell was the big. Yeah, they were playing close to playoff basketball before he came on, but I think Donovan. It'll see how they kind of mature with a full offseason with him.
Yep.
About how they mature. So we'll see. I think they're a playoff team, but just how deep they can go, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. I mean, those are really the 3. I mean, the 4th one, you can mix and match. The Knicks could potentially be decent and be in the top 4. It's hard once you get past those top 2 to 3. I feel like it drops a bit more on.
What do you think about Miami?
Miami, I feel like again is probably a 6 or 7, maybe an 8 seed again, like they were last year. They're a team that gets on runs.
It's a major drop. Yeah. I agree with you on that one. I think there's a major drop after you go past the top 3.
Yeah.
I also agree. I don't think that I don't like when people do like power rankings preseason.
No, it's always funny. It's funny. Even the regular season rankings are funny when ESPN does this week's NFL rankings are the Niners, who were 5-0 or whatever, beat the Cowboys. They were number 1. Then they barely lose to the Browns in a game they had a chance to win with a field goal, and the guy just missed it. And they suddenly drop. And suddenly it's now like Detroit's just as good as them. Are they though? I mean, I love the story with Detroit, but are they? But it's like, I don't know. I
always look at it kind of like what you just did. I had to look at it in tiers, and I think that's how I always look. It's like there's those tier 1 teams, like the ones that are Super Bowl contenders or are like legitimate, like can be there and win. And then there's like the second tier who are the the playoff teams, and then the ones that are in cusp, and then there are of course the teams that just don't have a fucking chance.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of those. But yeah, I always look at it more in tiers, and I think that you're the same way. It's like saying one's better than the other week after week. It's like I think a lot of times it's just for them to have that controversy because they drop it. What are you going to do? Like everybody, all 49er fans are going to comment, or they're going to think that Detroit should have moved up higher, or well, look, my team won and they should have moved up to 3 spots. Moved up 2 spots, and I think they should have moved up 4 spots. I
Yep.
think a lot of that is really just to get reaction from a fan base.
Oh, totally agree. Yeah, none of it makes sense. And it's just like when the Warriors went against the Celtics. The ESPN Power Index or whatever stat they love to throw around gave the Warriors 20% chance to beat the Celtics in the best of 7 series. And of course, the Warriors went on and won that.
Yeah.
And so people were like, what the hell are you using for your data? It's like, to your point, it's purely just a way to stimulate people to make comments. Like, I could come out right now and just say, okay, the greatest basketball player of all time isn't Michael Jordan. It's actually Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Right.
Or it's, and I can just throw man things. I can say my top 5 players of all time.
Pick and choose. You're going to pick and choose the stats that
Exactly.
that matter to you. You're not objective. You have a bias.
Well, yeah, I definitely have a bias. That is true.
Well, I know, but I
agree with you. It's very subjective to what you base your guidelines off of. Like, what is the points you consider most important? Like greatest. And again, we can get into a greatest of all time in some other episode where we can talk through that. But yeah, but out of curiosity, getting close to wrapping up the show here. I want to get. It's the beginning of the basketball season. Neither one of us has a clue who's really going to win. But right now, tell me who you think is going to get the finals for each Western and the Eastern Conference, and who's going to win. Go.
I think it's easy to say Denver still, just for obvious reasons. I just don't have a lot of faith on the Western side in either the Warriors or Lakers. It just, I think for both of them, a lot of things have to go right for them to be able to get there. Like you said, I mean, look, I have a love-hate relationship with LeBron, that can be another show in itself, where there's no denying what type of athlete he is. The fact that he's able to even perform just as a starter as a 40 in the NBA, right? On a playoff team, a starter is amazing, and still being at the level that he plays at. But it's just, again, AD gets hurt, and again, at his age, he can get hurt at any time, and he's never had a serious injury his whole career. Never one where like he was out, the season-ending type thing, So he's had nagging injuries or the ones that kept him out or limited.
There have been a few that have kept him out for months.
Yeah, but I'm just saying nothing, not a serious injury. And you're talking, what is this year 22 for him?
You're talking about LeBron. I was talking about LeBron. Yeah, LeBron. Yeah. LeBron, this is year 21, 22, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
God, I can't remember.
Yeah. Like I said, I think with the Lakers and the Warriors, I mean, just with there's just so many question marks with them. Where, not saying they can't, but it just.
What about Phoenix though?
I think Phoenix is the other team. I think it's really, for me, between Denver and Phoenix on the West. For me, I think Denver for the obvious reasons. I hate the default. Oh, they were champions, so they should be favored this year. I don't think that's always the case. I think that's a lazy argument to have. I mean, it's there for obvious reasons. I'm not saying no, but if they didn't have really any major turnover. Jokic is still in his prime, so there's no reason for them not to be a top contender. Phoenix again is a major change. What
about your Eastern team? What do you got there?
I don't know. I guess Celtics.
That's a good default. But they also tend to blow it throughout the playoffs.
I mean, I can see Miami is one of those teams that you just I guess I'm going back to them because I don't know, but I guess it just Celtics are the only team that I really feel like has the best chance. I think, again, like some of those other teams, just the East is kind of falling back into that thing where they just have one or two dominant teams and the rest are, well, we'll see what happens as the year progresses.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's funny because only like 2 or 3 years ago, like there was this whole, the West is so dominant, there's nobody in the East, but I don't know. It just seems like for NBA this year, there's still a lot of question marks about things.
I agree.
And of course, we'll see what happens with the Spurs. I mean, don't know how they're going to progress.
Yeah, that's true. For them, just even getting the playoffs as an 8 seed would be a win for the season.
Yeah. But then again, you got Popovich, and we'll see what he can do.
Yeah, well, he's got that tall kid, Wembayama, so we'll see
he
how
kind
it
of
goes.
does well when he has big rookies come in.
That is
true.
He
has a history of that.
That's true. So for me, real quick, mine are from the East. I'm gonna go with Milwaukee. I do like the makeup of Milwaukee. I think if Dame stays healthy with Giannis, I don't think the Celtics are gonna be able to stop him because the Celtics are still struggling. Although the Celtics did pick up Porzingis to add a little more
Yeah.
height and he can shoot. But he's kind of an up and down type guy. And they're always good defensive minded, so that helps. So that's where it can get tough for Milwaukee. And then for the West, I mean, if I try to take a more logical approach, I mean, my initial bet is it's going to be the Lakers, but trying to keep it more practical to what's there. I don't think Denver will get back. I really don't. I think they had a good run last year,
Yeah.
but I don't think they'll get there. I think it's possibly going to be Phoenix who gets there, barring they stay healthy.
Yeah.
And they'll lose it because that's just what happens. Or I could see, I honestly could see the Warriors surprise people, although they do need a little bit more height. I think they have to get a little bit taller because that's what they were exposed to last season was the lack of height.
Yeah.
Without that height, they couldn't keep up, and they need that to compete in the playoffs. Now, everyone else would still do a great job, but if they don't have that 7-footer to at least come in consistently and produce, then they're going to struggle. So,
one team we haven't talked about. What do you think about Dallas?
You mean as far as the Cowboys and the reality of if they're actually a competitive football team? So I'll leave it on this. I'll leave our last comments on this one in particular.
I was talking about the Mavericks, but okay.
Go Cowboys.
The Cowboys.
So Mavericks, no. Mavericks are like a 5 or 6 seed.
Trying to keep us on NBA.
You are very well done.
It's fair.
I went to a dark place really fast because there's no way the Cowboys are ever going to make a Super Bowl as long as Jerry Jones continues to GM that team.
Yeah,
it is what it is. Like they have not won anything since Jimmy Johnson left after building the team for Jerry Jones, and they aged out. When they aged out, that's why they no longer won anything. So, but for the Mavericks, yeah, good question. Mavericks, I think they're like a 6 seed. I don't think they're going to do well. Kyrie and Luka just won't play well together. They're going to try. Not that they're like against each other. I just don't think they meld well together. So I don't think it'll go well. So
I think I have a fear that Luka's going to be wasted on Dallas for years. Kind of almost like what happened with Dirk. Where he got one title. Not saying that he also had a stretch where he had to worry about Kobe and LeBron on those teams. So it's not like he didn't have.
Yeah, he had a hard path to get through. It's the same thing for Luka.
I think it's the same thing. I think that they're just not going to build the right team around him. Like, I mean, I have love for Kyrie for what he did for Cleveland, but he's a role player. I mean, he needs to have the team around him.
Right.
That fits him. It's not the other way around. You're never going to build a team around him. But yeah, I think that when they said that they were trading for him, I was like, I didn't get that. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, I agree. It didn't make a lot of sense. I mean, I understand they blew it when they let, oh my goodness, the Knicks point guard go.
Oh yeah,
play with Dallas. Who's guy.
Well, we're old, by the way. Yeah. So
yeah. So that's another thing you'll find out. We're gonna coming back. These things gets tough, so I need to have a crack staff.
Yeah, it's names. We're gonna forget. I forget names all the time. It's just I'm old.
Yeah. So we're gonna need our crack staff, which again will have to be us to figure this stuff out.
Serious.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed our little conversation today. It's our first show. We just want to give you a little bit more feedback on who we are and kind of, like we said, over the next, over the lifetime of the show, ideally what we'll be doing is focusing, on whether it's current events or just doing comparisons because we're Gen X people. So we tend to just sit and actually, whether you're Gen X or not, the point is you reach a certain age, you start to have a different perspective. And so I think a lot of what our conversations will be that we hope people enjoy is just those perceptions from a comparison period time to today, and maybe even future thought, like where can we even be better? So, so check us out each week. Again, subscribe, like the show, and we look forward to continuing to provide some either helpful insight or just humor, however you want to look at it.
And if you hate us, just keep it to yourself. We don't really care.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can
Right.
comment, but I mean, we'll forget anyway, so it's fine. Yeah, we'll
Because it's just what it is. I think also part of like this whole thing for us is it's a way for us to actually have conversations that we don't usually have.
Yeah.
He lives in a different area. Obviously, we're not in the same location, but it's also because he moved out of the area. So I think for us, just a way for us to stay in touch.
Yeah. So hopefully people can relate.
If you like it, then great. If not, then yeah.
Okay, they got it. They got it. All right. Anyway, once again, thanks everybody for joining, and check us out in the next episode.
Sounds good.